Hi, my name is Jason Smart for the Kyiv Post. Today I'll be interviewing Chris Stewart, who is formerly an F-16 pilot and instructor. Moreover, he was at the very same base in the United States where today Ukraine's future F-16 pilots are being trained. Chris currently is also a writer for the Kyiv Post. So, Chris, good to see you today.
Good to see you, Jason. How are you?
Doing great. So, Chris, we've been hearing a lot for over 2 years now about F-16s for Ukraine. What is the craze? Why are F-16s considered to be so important or versatile? What do they offer?
Well, the F-16 is one of the most maneuverable fighters in the world. It came out of the lightweight fighter program in the 1970s to augment the F-15, and it is capable of carrying every weapon in the NATO inventory, from air-to-air missiles to laser-guided bombs to all the latest and greatest. So anything that can be put on there can, including targeting pods such as laser-guided targeting pods to use a laser, targeting pods for detecting surface-to-air missiles like the S-300 and S-400 and S-500 or whatever. And then you can actively shoot AGM-88 harms at different things with knowing what is out there. Instead of just like on the MiG-29, what they're doing right now is just loading up the information on the ground and going out and shooting it blind without seeing what's really in the field. And additionally, the latest and greatest, the airframe was designed in the 1970s before they had supercomputers to put stealth in there, but there is some innate stealth in it anyway. It's not a 5th generation, but the newest and latest, including the F-16AM, which is the midlife upgrade version of the F-16 that Ukraine will be getting from the NATO countries. That has a lot of the latest and greatest on it, including the upgrades to the radar. It can shoot the latest AMRAAM. It can employ all the air-to-ground ordnance that there is, including JDAM and extended range JDAM, which would make it ideal for targeting whatever you need. It's also common with a lot of air forces in NATO, so maintenance and parts and things like that are compatible. It's also a very efficient airplane because it's a single engine, which in aircraft design is very good because it makes it more efficient on the fuel and a lot of other things. And so it's pretty much a bargain for what you're getting. There are other airplanes that are also as good, but they're not available because there are 5,000 F-16s that are already in the world. So, and some of those could be freed up, obviously.
So tell me, the F-16, what does Ukraine hope to be able to achieve with it?
Well, I think that what they're mostly talking about is air superiority, and that would mean that they're going to go up and probably use it in an air-to-air role. It has, with its radar, especially if it has the more advanced radars that are available, it can detect Su-27s or MiG-29s well before they can see it, or Su-34s. And the AMRAAM, especially the D model AMRAAM, has quite a range beyond the capability of any fighter that the Russians have. So air superiority wise, if they went up and they were doing defensive counter-air or offensive counter-air, that might be their main thing. I would hope that also they are allowed to use it for air-to-surface deliveries against especially airfields in Russia. I would hope that gets freed up because it would be an immense firepower capability for that capability. They can do whatever role you want, from interdiction at long range to close air support. It's quite a versatile airplane, so there are a lot of different things they could do with it. But I would imagine it will start with air defense and then it will go to surface attack.
So when you contrast the F-16 to common Russian aircraft, say Su-27 or MiG-29s, what would you say about them?
The Su-27 and MiG-29, I would say, are something like a 1970s Ford pickup, and the The F-16 is, maybe it's an old airframe, but it has the latest avionics. So it's nearly a 5th generation aircraft as far as the electronics that are on board, the radar and all the computers and everything, they're all upgraded. So it's kind of like, it's more like having a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. But even more than that, it also has all the tech that you might find in a, say, a Tesla or, you know, the latest Toyota, with the interfaces and the capability of integrating with other systems.
So having been an instructor on the F-16, and moreover, having instructed even Polish soldiers when the Poles first got the F-16s, what makes instruction on the F-16 so complicated? Why is it just not like flying a different airplane? Why is it that pilots, even with lots of experience, have to go through extensive training?
Well, the Western way, and especially where I come from in the U.S. Air Force, is it's a different mentality. Training people from Eastern Bloc countries that got trained under the Soviet style of flying, they are controlled from the ground, whereas in the F-16 and any other fighter aircraft, it's an integrated force where it's being used with other aircraft. And the person who's in charge is the flight lead of the F-16. And that means you need experience on how to not just fly your airplane, but you have to have somebody in the flight to control the other aircraft in your flight. So if you're flying with a 4-ship, you're directing number 2, 3, and 4 on what to do. And you are making the decisions, not somebody on the ground. And I've heard comm from communications radio transmissions directed to MiG-29 pilots, for example, and they're being told to brake left or brake right because a missile is being shot at them. That's all done in the cockpit. You're making your own decisions in the F-16, and you're making decisions for your flight members, and that takes some experience. And I would say most pilots in the West probably take about 3 years to get there, at least.
That's a lot of training. But it's not just training the pilots. I guess that it's a totally different sort of aircraft, so you also have to train the mechanics and other support staff. And there's got to be a lot of support staff and also parts that are needed for an F-16. What sort of support staff or auxiliary assistance does F-16s need in order to be effective?
Well, everything's in-line replaceable units, so as far as the parts, they can take them out and then go send them to a shop somewhere to be fixed. And I imagine that could be done in, say, Poland or Romania, where they're going to have F-16s pretty soon in Romania, and they already have them in Poland. So as far as the maintenance, I think that's good. One thing that's different is a lot of former Soviet airplanes are designed to operate from fields that are not very prepared. So they're very dirty fields. And the MiG-29 actually can close up its intakes, its normal intakes, and it can open up some intakes on top of the wing to let air in so they can taxi around, which is movement on the ground where they don't suck up, you know, rocks and particles of whatever is on the ground. And the F-16 is a big vacuum cleaner with an intake underneath, which helps make it so that it's not detectable by radar, but it also makes it so it's a big vacuum cleaner, and it will suck things up, and could take out an engine even.
So let me ask you just one last question. A lot of people have said that the F-16s, when they finally do arrive, will be the primary target of the Russians. They'll immediately try to destroy them. What can be done to mitigate that risk?
I think the Ukrainian Air Force is already working on dispersal. So they have plans where they don't park them in the same place every day. And so they're going to go to different airfields. The other thing they can do, the ones they're getting are from Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Denmark. And they have drag chutes on them so they can land on very short fields, which means they can use highways. And that's something that is in the plan for a lot of those countries when they were fearing, especially back in the Cold War even, they were fearing invasion by the Soviet Union. And so they were planning on using airfields that were basically also dual-use highways. So that's something that I know that Ukraine's working on. The other thing is you want hardened aircraft shelters, so you can put them in those to park them. wherever you can make them. So I think there are plans for that kind of thing going on right now.
Chris, that's really great. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.